think the talent has always been there. He's certainly someone that has the physicality. I think the floor here is if, he doesn't find a way to sort of command his full arsenal.
The name is Kumar Rocker. If you're a college baseball fan, you've heard that name for a while now. He is the top prospect in the Texas Rangers farm system, and he could make a big impact in Major League Baseball this year. Let's hit a prospect profile. Scott Braun, along with Baseball America's JJ Cooper and Geoff Pontes. Let's get to it. JJ, Kumar Rocker this year for the Rangers in the rotation, making a big impact. What do you think?
I would say that we saw him at the end of last year. I think they need him to make an impact this year. There's only one big hurdle, and you mentioned it. Kumar Rocker's been a guy that everyone has been watching, paying attention to for years now. I remember watching him in high school, and he was already a dude, and he was already physically a dude when he was in high school. But goes to Vandy, has one of the better freshman years, especially one of the best postseasons we'll ever see in college baseball. And you think at that point, okay, by now we're talking about a guy who's years into his big league career, and then the injury strike. And even like later in his Vanderbilt career, like in his draft year, you would see that velocity kind of wax and wane depending on the outing. The Mets draft him, and then they don't sign him, and they say the medicals, they had to back away. The Rangers then go out and draft him, and then he blew out his elbow. And so that's why we're still talking about him as a prospect coming into 25. But that's also the question. That the biggest question I would say that we face with Rocker in 25, you want to see him improve his secondaries, the third pitch, to kind of help him better as a starter. But the big thing is how many innings are they going to be comfortable letting him go this year? Because of the injuries, we are years away from the last time that Kumar Rocker went 100 innings in a season or close to it. Are they going to be willing? Are they going to be able to basically hand him the ball and say, okay, we can expect 20, 25 starts out of you? Geoff, that's the question that it's going to be really interesting to see, because stuff-wise, there shouldn't be as much of a question.
Yeah, I think, there's probably a bigger question in terms of health. I do think there's some stuff that popped up and sort of showed itself in the major leagues. In particular, he's probably going to have to switch off of that four-seam fastball. It graded really poorly on a ton of stuff models, the public ones like, Saris's Stuff Plus, et cetera, that's on Fangraphs. The sinker grades out as a plus pitch. I think he probably ends up having to go there. He's lost some rides since his college days. I think some of that was the tracking devices. Some of it might also be, some of the elbow and shoulder injuries that he's dealt with. We've seen that happen with other prospects. Forrest Whitley's a guy that sort of lost some of his ride over time and switched to a sinker. The sinker plays pretty well. Might make him a little bit less of a strikeout guy and more of a bad contact guy that can miss bats with that slider. Certainly the development of a third pitch, whether that ends up being, his cutter or his changeup or sort of a combination of the two, it should be interesting to see, how that stuff develops over the course of the year, how the Rangers decide to sort of develop him, and, where the arsenal sort of goes from there. It is an interesting pitch mix. I think just the big question is, what's the third pitch, and does he really make that switch to a primary sort of two-seam sinker type of fastball and maybe only throw the four-seamer in certain counts?
I kind of think with that also, like, this is going to be the crucial year for this because of the timetable and all. Okay, we really are going to see on that third pitch. Maybe it is a cutter. Maybe, again, it could be a changeup. But I would especially say he's going to throw in a curve as well. But I would love to see kind of a cutter that just gives him something else in the zone that really kind of would start pushing Rocker to being more of that bad contact, that weak contact kind of guy. Not the, maybe a little less than the strikeouts than maybe people expected if you saw him back in 2019 in the postseason for Vandy and all. But the slider's still really good. But I would also say with that, like, if that doesn't come along, and I think he's going to have plenty of time to work here as a starter to see if it does, but it also is a mix, Geoff, to me, that does say, like, if it didn't work out as a starter long term, he could be a really good reliever. I don't want to pick, I think he's going to end up as a starter, but the fallback options I feel like here are pretty good as well, as long as he stays healthy.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think, you brought up a good point. The slider is a really good pitch. I think some people probably would refer to as a cutter and then, call the curveball a slider. It's just sort of how the pitches are shaped, but could get a little bit more of like a ride, traditional, maybe like a cut fastball. That might be another, element that he could sort of add to his game. But once again, we don't know what the medicals are fully. We don't know what his limitations are in terms of like what types of pitches he can throw. But I think the talent has always been there. He's certainly someone that has the physicality. I think the floor here is if, he doesn't find a way to sort of command his full arsenal, which was a little bit of an issue in the major leagues in terms of hitting his spots and showing consistent command, and isn't able to handle a huge workload. Maybe he's a multi-inning reliever that can be really nasty in, high leverage situations. So I think he does have the stuff to be successful as a major leaguer. It's just, does he have the durability? Does he have the track record, of strike throwing, all those sort of things to be, a starter that can go out there and give you 25 plus starts a year? And I think that question's still just very much up in the air.
The other thing that does stand out to me, though, is this is an organization that there's two number one prospects. There's 1A and 1B. Rocker is basically big league ready. Sebastian Walcott's not. But if you're a Rangers fan, after you just graduated Wyatt Langford, you just graduated Evan Carter, now you have Rocker and you have Walcott knocking on the door before too long. That's a pretty good situation to be in, especially I know last year 2024 was not the year that Rangers fans wanted, but that World Series, the champagne smell is just kind of coming out after that 23 season. So it does feel like that the Rangers are in a pretty decent spot right now.
Yeah, and Walcott was a riser, right? We weren't talking a lot about him in this kind of conversation a year ago. So you love to see that when you're not excited about someone or you just don't know about someone, and then all of a sudden he hits the equation here for this team. I want to finish with this. I didn't hear the word that I was looking for from Rocker. Can we call it a death ball? Is that still a thing? Remember when that was a thing last year, like the little baby curve? I think he calls it a curve. Can we say that he has a death ball just because it's good marketing?
I think from like
I call it more like it's I wouldn't say death. I would say like it can cut you, but I don't know if you're going to bleed out.
Okay, doom ball, Geoff. Doom ball. Like it's a minor version of the death ball.
Yeah, I mean it's a harder curveball with less vertical drop. It's sort of slurvy in nature. Maybe has like a little bit more like drop than your typical slurve. But it's a hard curveball. Certainly based on like how Tread was sort of marketing the pitch when they started to talk and have the conversation around the whole death ball moniker. It certainly from like a movement perspective fits into that. I just don't know that it's, it's not a pitch that he's throwing 30% of the time or anything, which, if you're going to have something like a death ball, that kind of label on a pitch, it's the type of pitch that you better be leading on quite a bit because, yeah, you're killing it bats then.
I would say Spencer Strider, that's a death ball. That's a death ball.
Strider,
okay. Death ball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're just trying to come up with some other names, right? The Ghost Fork, obviously, that earns its nickname. It's ridiculous for Senga, and he uses it plenty. So, all right, Doomball maybe, or I don't know if he even uses it enough to be able to call it that. But I think Rangers fans will just settle for 25 plus starts and keeping him in the rotation and seeing him do good things for them and finally kind of live up to what we saw back in college from him. So thanks for watching this one. Of course, if you are a fan of other teams and you'd like to learn about their top prospects, we have videos for you. And if you don't see your team yet, it will be coming out on a day-by-day basis here during spring training.